yesterday had to apologize for a viral video over the weekend.
I just apologize to the team and staff and for being a distraction, just stupid. And so I explained everything that happened and owned it, and, just stupid. Should not have myself in that kind of position. Stayed to see the grandkids, and we all went to dinner that night at the restaurant, and then there's a big group next to our restaurant, and they wanted me to come over and take pictures, and I did. And they were trying to pull me out on the dance floor, screwing around, and I should have left. Apologized again for being a distraction, and a coach should not be a distraction.
Paul Finebaum, what do you make of this latest controversy with Urban Meyer?
Max, this is who Urban Meyer is. Those of us who have followed him for many, many years have heard him with these lame, disingenuous apologies before. And nothing I'm about to say should surprise any of you, because we've all had these conversations. But Urban Meyer is a liar and a fraud, and he has no business being in the National Football League. And the sooner that the ownership down there dismisses him, the better this franchise will be. This is not reactionary. This is just an accumulation of one misstep after another, going back many, many months to the strength and conditioning coach. Just follow the timeline. We've all been through it. We don't need to be emotional about it. We don't need to be outraged about it. This is who he is, and nothing has changed. Keyshawn, I don't know how many times you and I have had this conversation about Urban Meyer, and it's always the same. It's always Urban Meyer standing up, looking down like he's reading something that the PR guy wrote for him, apologizing, owning it. I mean, owning it is getting on a plane after your team loses a heartbreaker and go back with your guys. And going to work at 5 o'clock the next day to try to correct some of the problems. Owning it is not, going up to Columbus or wherever he went, hanging out with the grandchildren, and then going to, being dragged over to the bar. I mean, I haven't heard anything like that since a politician in Washington tried that. I mean, that's just not even believable, guys.
Yeah, Paul, I've got 6-7 different feelings about the Urban Meyer situation. I don't. The one is, first of all, you are the leader of a football team, and you're a leader of men, and you're supposed to set a certain example. So you say, because you tell the players, don't put your organization and the team in an uncompromising position. And yet and still, he kind of winds up in this situation and have to dance his way around trying to explain the situation. That's that. Then you think about what you mentioned just a minute ago, Paul, about the team and not flying back with the team. I've seen coaches, and I've been on teams with coaches, where we've decided we were in a certain city that we would hold over because the coach wanted to spend time with his family. So we, instead of flying out after the game on a Sunday, we would stay over and leave on a Monday morning. I don't know why Urban Meyer didn't do that. I have no idea. As far as him losing his job and being fired and things of that nature, that's on Shad Khan and Jacksonville Jaguars to make that decision. But he certainly has not set a good example at all. I mean, practice what you preach. And I'm sure he's told his players to stay out of harm's way like a lot of coaches, and then he winds up on social damn media doing some things that I'm sure he is certainly not proud of.
Yeah. Paul, moving forward, let's transition here to Notre Dame. I want you to listen to something that Peter Burns said the other day on Sunday on Best Week Ever on ESPN Radio.
Listen, let's be honest. It's better to lose to Cincinnati than to limp into the college football playoff once again and get absolutely exposed, in which Georgia or Alabama would have done that. I don't blame a Notre Dame fan or any college football fan for saying, no, we want to be in the playoff. We want to have an opportunity to be in the dance, to get it. But getting destroyed in the playoff is only going to rack up more sins that future Notre Dame teams would have to unfairly face. And honestly, I think it did the college football playoff a favor because the committee would more than likely put this Notre Dame team in again. They would have lost, and then everyone looks at it and go, well, what does the committee know?
Your thoughts, Paul?
That's not the way any sport is structured. And I don't need to lecture Keyshawn and Jay Will. You guys were at the absolute zenith of your sport. You join a team. You join a team like Notre Dame to compete for the best. You don't say, okay, it's fine. Now I understand his thinking on that, but I can guarantee you that Brian Kelly would not agree. Because that's not who he is. I happen to think Brian Kelly is a good football coach. I didn't always agree with him, but I think he's brought this program back. He got beat by a really good team on Saturday. Cincinnati's one of the top 5 or 6 teams in the country. But I don't know any coach who thinks like that. And quite frankly, I don't know any player who thinks like that. Do you guys?
No, but I do. I guess I agree with him to a degree, though, Paul. Would you have wanted to see Notre Dame in the college football playoffs again getting smashed against the wall?
I mean, we've already seen it 3 times now, so it wouldn't have shocked me. I can assure you. But by the way, there's no guarantee Notre Dame runs the table anyway. But these aren't choices. I mean, these are statements that we make now about something that's going to happen 3 months from now. But I think there are some programs where maybe you could make that type of statement. But I don't think you can make that type of statement for Notre Dame. That's just not what Notre Dame is about.
Understood. Let's go back to the SEC conference. Before the game, Paul, Lane Kiffin, before the Alabama game, Lane Kiffin was telling everybody that would listen to get the popcorn ready. Instead, he burned the popcorn in Tuscaloosa. What did this tell you about both teams, Ole Miss as well as Alabama?
Well, first of all, Lane Kiffin is being excoriated for what he said in the interview with CBS. And his mistake wasn't what he said. Get your popcorn ready is just a little bit unconventional. His mistake was that he dropped the headset. He dropped the mic, so to speak. And Lane's rationale was that the game was about to start. He heard the officials calling. Now, I just ask all you guys a question. I don't know. I've never been out there in front of 100,000 people. Do you think, Keyshawn, that the officials would have started the game while Lane was doing the interview, or you think they may have waited for him to stop? That's just a question I have. But other than that, the real difference between this...
I don't know, because I talked to him after the game, and we had a conversation. I told Lane, I said, Lane, what are you doing, man? Where's your brain at? And he goes, well, I thought she was done with her questions, and they told me the game was getting ready to start, so I was running to go to the game. I just was like, oh, okay, well, whatever. And I left it alone.
He didn't have far to go, by the way. He was on the field. The biggest difference in the game was probably about 15 to 25 stars on the Alabama sideline. And that's really, I'm not making excuses for Lane Kiffin. I like him like you do, but that really, in many ways, was a mismatch from a talent standpoint. And Lane gambled, which I do not blame him for. You know the analytics, Keyshawn.
I liked it too,
and
Paul.
I think he said, you know what?
Going for it.
I agree.
Go for it. Like, you
Why not?
get stomped.
Why not?
But you're going to lose either way. At least this way you have a chance to win.
Totally. We are finally in agreement, Max, after all these years.
But, okay. Yes, he went for it a few times. He probably went for it too many times. But a year ago, they converted 4 tries on 4th down against Alabama. So I can understand where he was going for it. And I told him after the game, I was like, dude, seriously? Like, you went for it way too many times. But much like you just said, Paul, him and I talked, and one of the things was like, Key, they got a lot of pros on that team, man. They just do. They got a lot of pro football players. And when you got a lot of pros, this is what happened to you.
Paul, speaking of a lot of pros, is there any team close to closing that gap in the SEC with Alabama? Obviously, Georgia's defense is prolific. We saw what they did this weekend as well. But are they it? Is that it?
Well, right now, Jay Will, I think Alabama and Georgia are in a bundle. And I mean, we could spend hours, not that anybody really wants to hear it other than Alabama and Georgia fans, debating which one is better. It really doesn't matter. They're going to meet on the first Saturday in December. But those two schools right now are light years ahead of everybody else in the SEC. I mean, think about this for a second. Saturday night in College Station, Alabama is playing Texas A&M. A network down the street decided that this was the game of the year, so they moved it to prime time. Texas A&M finished fourth in the country last year. Fourth in the country. They've already lost twice. They should have lost another time. I mean, they lost at home to Mississippi State. This game, won't be within 3 or 4 touchdowns. That's how quickly it goes for you. And after Alabama and Georgia, the next best team may be identified this Saturday in Iowa when Iowa plays Penn State. But there's a tremendous drop-off between number 2 where Georgia is and Iowa at number 3. And Oregon, I thought was the other team that had a chance. They lost to Stanford in overtime. I think the Big Ten is fascinating. Is this Jim Harbaugh's year? Does Ryan Day bring Ohio State back? I mean, there are a lot of possibilities, but there are not many teams. There are no teams that compare to Alabama and Georgia right now.
That's the great Paul Finebaum, ladies and gentlemen. Alabama's unbelievable. Every year, it's like everything changes every year except Nick Saban in Alabama and Paul Finebaum. Georgia's dominant win over Arkansas is a celebratory moment of the week. Thanks, Paul. Brought to you by Allstate. Save money like a champion with Allstate Championship savings for the win. Paul Finebaum is brought to you by Dr. Pepper. College football's heating up and fans are hyped. Crack open an ice-cold Dr. Pepper, slap on a fresh coat of face paint, and return to glory with an all-new season of